Hi there guys, welcome to this week's episode of Bucs Banter. My guest as usual today is Mr. Simon Conboy.
What's up guys?
And we are going to discuss the, well, not unsurprising victory over the Miami Dolphins in the Florida Bowl, 30-20. So
Not surprising if you've watched the Dolphins in recent weeks, no.
No, but you did nearly get Matt Maud. So, do you want to take us a rough overview of the game?
Yeah, it was the proverbial game of two halves. First half, Buccaneers played pretty well, moved the ball well, should have scored more points. Were a bit iffy in the red zone, which has been a problem for a while. Still struggling to establish any kind of running game. It's the biggest issue with this offense. The passing attack has been reasonable for most of this year. It's just this running attack it offers very little threat at the moment. Defense was playing well. 4 turnovers in the first half, 2 of which were gifts, but the other 2 were pretty well played. That obviously helps, and this game should have been way over. Missed a field goal in the first half. Couple of red zone opportunities that went to pot. Especially one of them, a touchdown play on the missed field goal drive that was called back by a penalty. There were a lot of penalties in this game, absolutely loads of the things, which explains why these two teams are pretty bad. But the defense was playing well, offense was doing enough, should have been comfortable. And then in the second half, the team took its foot off the gas. The offense became hyper conservative, couldn't get a first down. It allowed the Dolphins to get back into the game. The advantages, the one thing the Bucs can say is the defense did a good job tightening up in the red zone in the second half. That's what kept the team in the game, frankly, because they were moving up and down the field, the Dolphins, for the most part. But they came up with a pretty decent drive at the end. The Bucs had been successful passing the ball for the majority of the day, and when they had to at the end, they were able to get back into that rhythm offensively and put the game away. But it's been a problem with this team. Just they can't put together a complete performance over the course of 4 quarters. Kind of the opposite today, in that the first half they played pretty well, and then the second half they let the Dolphins back into the game. As well as Matt Moore played in the second half, a lot of that came down to opportunity. The Buccaneers going 3 and out constantly. In the first half, the Dolphins didn't convert a single third down. In the second half, I think they punted once, went for it on 4th down, which failed. That was a huge play in the game. And other than that, they scored on every drive. So it was a real turnaround, and really disappointing to see the way that game kind of ended. Nice to get the win, but it would have been nice to have a comfortable second half with the team playing pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the numbers, Fitzpatrick seemed to play by Fitzpatrick standards, a pretty good game, throwing for
Played a solid.
275, 2 touchdowns. We had the Deshaun Jackson sighting in the red zone.
Yeah, it could have been more. Deshaun Jackson was barely involved in the game. He saw very, very few targets. Most of it was to Mike Evans, who's been very inefficient this season in terms of his targets. Had a couple of drops in this game. One of them was a great play by the defender, so I don't hold that one against him too much. The other one was in the red zone. He was kind of falling over. Still probably should have caught it. And that was the play before Deshaun Jackson scored. Bit annoying for my fantasy team, but should win. The other guy I'm playing has Deshaun Jackson, but should still win the game. It was an okay performance from Mike Evans. OJ Howard started this game really well, had a couple of big plays, got the touchdown, which was nice. Had what would have been a really, really good second touchdown from his, like a little tight end screen, and just bowled his way over a couple of players to get in the end zone. But there was a holding flag, because of course there was. But he started the game well, then had a couple of drops and then disappeared. Surprised the Buccaneers didn't use the tight ends more, considering the struggles that Miami have had dealing with them, especially early in the game when OJ Howard was having so much success. They kind of got away from
it. Yeah, I mean, as well, I do notice Jay Cutler tried really, really hard to give the game away. I mean, what one touchdown, 3 interceptions.
It's easy to be very critical of Jay Cutler. It's Jay Cutler. However, only one of those interceptions is his fault. The other two are both firmly on the shoulders of Devontae Parker. I don't know if you've seen the pics, but the first one, is not. The first one's unlucky because this is the first Miami drive actually coming after a massive run. Again, neither of these teams could run the ball outside of 2 big runs that the Dolphins had in the first quarter. And basically, you've got Devontae Parker running a sort of deep slant type route with Justin Evans on him. And as Evans goes to undercut him, their feet get tangled. Devontae Parker falls over and it's an easy interception. Those happen. That's just unfortunate. The second one was a pure Jay Cutler like brain fart. Scrambling, rolling out to his right, throws back across his body to a receiver, and Quan Alexander just undercuts it for an easy interception. That one's horrific. You cannot justify that. The third one is absolutely on Devontae Parker. It's a curl route, hits him straight in the hands, and it just pops up into the air and gets picked off by Buccaneer. So Cutler didn't play horribly, as you might think, but he wasn't playing well in this offense that really lethargic with him on the field. Clearly, Matt Moore gave him a boost and looked bordering on unstoppable at times. I don't think he was helped by his pass protection. One of the things the Buccaneers were doing in the first half, they were quite aggressive. They were blitzing a lot more. Saw Quan Alexander and Levante David coming. I mean, you saw it on the first play of the game was Levante David coming up the A-gap and bringing Cutler down. Cutler managed to throw it away. And in the second half, because of the lead, they played very soft, and I think that did help Matt Moore establish a rhythm and start carving this Bucs team up. But yeah, Cutler. There was also the Jarvis Landry fumble, which was, to be fair, a really good defensive play. Jarvis Landry had a really good game, other than that one play.
So basically, the entire team turned up for the first half, and then in the second half, if it wasn't for the defense, you legitimately could have lost this to Matt Moore.
The problem in the second half was the offense just, again, got conservative. Every drive was a pass and 2 runs. And the way we were running the ball was never going to lead to success. There was a point in the first half we were running it. Once teams figure we're running, it's easy to stop. So this line has not been great. They did very well in pass protection yesterday, though. Cameron Wake had an incredibly quiet game. Sue made a couple of nice plays against the run, but Fitzpatrick had quite a lot of time. Still a little skittish in the pocket. And if I've remembered anything about watching Fitzpatrick in these last 2 games, he is awful throwing the ball on the run. I mean, damn. He's mobile. He's mobile enough, but he should not throw the ball on the run at all. That's where I think so many of his bad plays come from, is he's just so scattershot when he's on the move. You have no idea where the ball's ending up.
Yeah, no Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson
No. And you kind of take it for granted. Jameis as well is quite a good front on the run as well. So it's that much more noticeable. But yeah, it was a strange game, frankly. The amount of penalties really broke the game up. It ended up being one of the latest games finishing, just because the amount of flags. I think there was Miami must have had about 15 or so. I don't know if you've got the numbers in front of you, but an absurd amount of penalties. And there was a play where the Buccaneers had 3 penalties on special teams. And I swear this year, every time the Buccaneers are involved in a special teams play, there's a flag.
Oh no, I mean, considering there were 2 overtime games, they finished before the Bucs game did.
One of them did. One of them did.
That says it all.
Yeah.
Although I obviously, we're recording this early Monday, so the Seahawks Atlanta game is yet to be aired and played. But regardless of that, I think I'll point out anyway that at the moment in the NFC, the Buccaneers are sitting as the 13th seed in that conference. However, if you were in the AFC, you'd be sitting at 8th with only the Bills in front of you, the Bills and the Ravens in front of you.
Yeah, the NFC is pretty rough. I mean, the weird thing is, it's hard to see it happening because the teams in the wildcard spots look pretty reasonable. I can't see Carolina dropping a whole bunch of games. The Seahawks, to me, are an interesting. Now, I don't think this Buccaneers team has shown enough to think they're capable of going on a 6-game win streak. I just haven't seen enough. But in terms of the teams in front of them, the Lions just don't impress me. I feel like they've scored so many touchdowns defensively. That's how they won the game yesterday. Again, that just a silly play. I feel like luck is going to catch up to them at some point because I think they're pretty unimpressive. I feel like the Bucs could catch them, or a 4-6 team could.
Yeah, I mean the Lions are. I mean, if the season ended today, the Lions are a game off.
They are a game off. The teams in at the moment, I believe, as wild cards are the Seahawks and the Panthers. The Panthers I know are. The Panthers are the 5th seed.
Yeah, it's the Seahawks and the Panthers. So, I mean,
the Seahawks.
This is obviously
if the
relevant.
Seahawks lose tonight, it really does sort of mash things up. And if the Buccaneers had looked more impressive this year, I would have that glimmer of hope. I'm going to cling to it anyway because I'm a sports fan. But you've got, what would it be? You'd have the Falcons at 6-4, the Seahawks at 6-4, Panthers 1 game ahead of them, the Packers at 5-5, but they just look done with Hundley at quarterback. The Lions, who, as I mentioned, I don't seem particularly good. A whole bunch of teams at 4-6 that are quite unimpressive. Other than the Redskins, who I just feel have been very unfortunate this year. I've been impressed with them for the most part. Don't know how they lost that game yesterday.
I mean, legitimately now, you could improve. I mean, say Atlanta lose tonight, which is fair to say it can happen. They'd go to 5. They'd go to 5-5. Yeah, they go to 5-5. You've got them next week, which we're going to which we'll get onto in a moment. Which means if you beat them, you'd improve to 5-6,
and we'd get off the bottom of the division.
Yes, and you would have the tiebreak over them. I mean, the rest of your schedule is actually what I would consider relatively soft, except the last 2 games.
Well, it's a strange one because it's 4 divisional games in 6. And if the Buccaneers are looking at the playoffs as a realistic possibility, or not as a realistic possibility, that's too much, but as a possibility, what I think they've got to kind of hope is that the Panthers keep winning and just take that 5 seed. The Seahawks struggle because of the injuries, because Cam Chancellor and Sherman being out is huge. This is, a very different Seahawks defense that we're going to see for the remainder of the season. Earl Thomas has been banged up. I still think the Seahawks make it, but, let me dream. They could potentially tank a little bit, maybe fall into the pack, have a couple of losses. What you've then got to hope for Bucs is that you just win out. The Lions drop a game, you can get the tiebreaker over them, you can get the tiebreaker over the Packers, and you've got the Falcons twice, so you can potentially creep ahead of them. So if the Bucs can get to 10-6, which again, I cannot see it happening. This team has not performed close to well enough to imagine ending the season on an 8-game winning streak. But it would be fun.
I mean, when's
We've got another week of Fitzpatrick, by the way, at least.
I was about to say, when's Winston slated to come back?
There were rumours that rumours necessarily, but it was a possibility that he was going to play this week against Atlanta, but they've already ruled that out. Fitzpatrick's going to be the starter. The offense looks less explosive with Fitzpatrick, but I think there's a little bit more consistency. The offensive line, frankly, played a lot better yesterday, so that's a plus. They still can't run block at all. Buccaneers really need to work on that guard position because it is just not good enough.
Yeah, in terms of
defensively, though, pretty reasonable yesterday. Gerald McCoy had a really big day. He was great. He got poked in the eye. The lesson was don't poke Gerald McCoy in the eye. Apparently, it motivates him. He played great.
Well, legitimately speaking, if the Falcons win tonight against the Seahawks, that's the Bucs all but shut out from the playoffs.
They're pretty much shut out from the playoffs now. As I say, there's very little reason to believe this team can win 6 more games in a row. And the AFC has been so weak this year that it is pretty much impossible to see a repeat of last year with a 9-7 team sneaking in. It's going to require 10. And it looks like the Panthers are going to get there pretty comfortably, to be honest.
Yeah,
the Seahawks, maybe not because of the injuries. And as I say, the Lions don't impress me. The Falcons don't impress me. I think it's anyone's. There's a team that's going to get hot in the NFC. And I hope it's the Bucs. It's just I've not seen enough to think it's going to be them. And I think there will be one of these teams that's 4-6 or 5-5 that ends up making a push. Probably falls short, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's wild to think that even with your 4-6 record, if the Bucs happen to have been put in the AFC way back when, you'd almost be.
We said it before the season. The AFC was bad. I didn't think it would be this bad. I thought the AFC West was going to be really good, and frankly, with the way the Broncos and the Broncos have fell off, the Chiefs have fell off recently. The Raiders are a mess. And the Chargers, the Chargers have probably been the best team in that division for the last few weeks, but the Chargers will find ways to lose because it seems to be what they do the last few years. And the rest of the AFC divisions are thoroughly unimpressive. The AFC South is going to be won by default. I've got to say, the Jags, this stuff should really be on tomorrow, but the Jags are the least impressive 7-3 team I think I've ever seen.
I've maintained this. I've maintained that since the start of the season. The Jags are thoroughly unimpressive. They're just beating down crap teams.
Their defense is really good. You can't dispute that. But Blake Bortles is a liability. The offensive line's not great. Leonard Fournette basically gives them enough offense to win some games with the defense playing as it. But yeah, if the Bucs are in the AFC, I'd be pretty confident, to be honest. The AFC North is just trash behind the Steelers. The AFC East is trash behind the Patriots. And the NFC is just a mishmash of inconsistent teams.
Yeah. Well, but let's not get too tangential. This is the Bucs cast, as it were.
It is. The only sort of thing I really want to sort of focus on from yesterday's game again is the defense. When this team can get pressure, they look so much better. And it was just frustrating to see the team going to the shell in the second half. This team can't rush 4. They can't do it because the only guy who's going to get you pressure is Gerald McCoy, who had, as mentioned, had a great game. Everyone else really struggled to generate pressure against a bad line yesterday. A really bad line. that's got to be a big concern. They're just going to have to accept this has to be a blitzing, aggressive Buccaneers defense. The secondary can't hold up, and the line's not getting there on its own.
Yeah,
So
I think there's a lot of needs.
With it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of needs the Bucks need to address on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, I've never understood.
It's a simple one. They need corners because Hargraves hasn't shown that he's going to be a long-term starter to me at this point. But we can hope, but he's not had a great year. Brent Grimes isn't going to be around forever. You've not really got anyone else. Justin Evans has had a pretty good year at safety, but then you need another safety and you need edge rushers. The middle of the defense is okay. I like the linebacking crew. The linebacking crew is great. I like the tackle position, but the rest of it needs help. And on the offensive side, this team needs a running back with some explosiveness. I've not had one since Warwick Dunn, like the late 90s, basically. So they need an explosive runner, and they need to improve the line play.
Yeah, I think. Wait, hold on. I thought Doug Martin was quite explosive in his rookie season.
Oh, he's looked explosive in his cuts, but he doesn't have the speed to really threaten a team.
No, that's true. I mean, he's good yards after contact type runner, but not a blazing.
Yeah, and you can really see it on a team. Frankly, he's not the kind of runner that's going to make. This year has shown that without blocking in front of him, he's not the kind of guy who's going to make a lot of plays. And his vision isn't always the best, frankly. The Buccaneers do need to start thinking about moving on from the salary he's on. He's just not been a reliable enough player.
No, I imagine he could probably flourish, somewhere else. With good run blocking O lines. But I think in Tampa, it's kind of a lost cause at this point. I think it's time to move on.
Yeah, it feels like it's kind of run its course, and they need to look for someone a bit more dynamic. I think the team could really do as well because he's not enough of a threat in the passing game. I think having a really effective free down back would open up a lot of things for this offense.
Oh yeah, I think bringing in a running back who can also catch out in the backfield will help. Like what they do in Arizona, or should be doing in Arizona, greatly helps spread out that offense. Have that constant threat of a passing game, especially with someone with the arm of Winston.
Well, the way I kind of look at it is you look at what the Patriots offense does, where the running backs are heavily involved as check downs, because the Patriots this year have thrown deep quite a lot of the time, and I think that's what the Bucs want to do. That's absolutely what they want to do. Having some guys that can run some good routes. Charles Sims is okay, but having another option that's also an every down type guy, because Charles Sims just isn't a threat as a runner. Threat as a pass catcher, but not as a runner. If you can get a guy that can do a little bit of both, I think it really opens things up. Look at what Alvin Kamara has done for the Saints.
Oh yeah, he came out of nowhere. I didn't expect him to be that.
What do you mean came out of nowhere? I've been telling everyone, I was being ridiculed for mocking him as a first rounder and talking about how much I loved him. Let them Lions fans that they're taking that one back. That they wish they had Alvin Kamara now.
Oh, definitely.
Yes, and Amir Abdullah. He's in my fantasy team. I know how disappointing he is.
Well, it's like the guys who the teams who passed over Deshaun Watson. Man, they must be kicking themselves.
Quarterback's a tough one, but Kamara was one of those. Case of if his frame can hold up, but the tape didn't lie. He was on a bad Tennessee team. He unders.
So anything in closing? I mean, obviously the defense performed well.
Okay. First half tick, second half not so much.
Yeah, I think you just need Fitzpatrick to settle into rhythm a bit more, and take more chances down the field. I mean, considering the receivers you've got available to you in Tampa,
Yeah, it was. It did feel very conservative, the passing attack yesterday. I think part of that was accounting for this pass rush that you'd expect from Miami, which didn't really turn up. They didn't really try to make enough of that for me. Next week, it is the big one, really. If they want to get Bucs fans back on board with this team, see the pirate pun.
Yeah,
Skills. I have them. The next week would go a long way to that, beating the Falcons, getting on a bit of a win streak. It'd build a bit of momentum and let us get into that deluded dream mode of making the playoffs. It would be kind of annoying if it does happen, though, if it was on a bit of a win streak and fall short again, because that's what happened last year. Another slow start to the season, because we were 2-5 at one point last year. So it would be the same.
I mean, I'm not sure. Well, obviously, you want the Bucs to play well, but do you really want to build up, the hype and the anticipation that comes from maybe making the playoffs?
I always want this team to win, even if it's, forget draft position and stuff. I might say I would be happy for this team to lose and get a nice draft pick, but then Sunday happens and I want them to win, especially when you've got 4 divisional games left. I hate losing those guys, especially the Panthers.
You mean the Panthers or Cam Newton? Because in recent years,
I hated the Panthers before Cam Newton came along. He only exacerbated that fact.
Wow, fair enough. I mean, back then, the Panthers that was Josh Delhomme, I think.
Jake Delhomme for a number of years. The reason I have a bitterness towards the Panthers, and I think it's probably true for a lot of Bucs fans, especially those that started watching around the time I did, is the early 2000s. They were basically like a mirror image of the Bucs, and it just made them that much more irritating. And frankly, after we won the Super Bowl, better than us for most of those years.
Yeah, you've had your one.
Yeah, we got the one. We're better than them. They ain't got no rings.
No, they got runners-up prize though.
Woohoo!
Participation awards all around for Carolina.
Yeah, you can go 15-1 and lose the Super Bowl. I'll take our 12-4 Super Bowl win all day.
Yeah, but also the Bucs had a great storyline behind it the year they won it, so that definitely helps. It was quite cheesy, to be honest. Right.
Well, it was very bizarre. The Gruden thing to end up playing the Raiders, have the Pirate Bowl.
Yeah.
I'll do an episode on that team at some point.
Yeah, you should do. You should. I'm sure long-time Bucs fans would be, quite glad to watch it.
Everyone, all Bucs fans like talking 2000. Given.
Well, it's like
Or the 99 Bucs team. If there's one thing I've learned, a lot of the hardcore actually prefer that team. They were probably a bit better defensive.
Yeah, well, it seems like Bucs fans are like English football fans. We had our one victory many, many years ago. Keep banging on about it.
I don't bang on about it all the time.
No, you don't, but I'm sure some people do.
I prefer banging on about how that defence generally over such a large period of time doesn't get enough respect, in my opinion. But
just think
the problem is you had the 2000 Ravens a couple of years before, and I think that overshadowed it a little bit.
Yeah. I just think there was a time when the Bucs were the only team in that division with a Super Bowl trophy.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway, we're tangenting now.
We are.
So, unless you have anything to close with?
No, I mean, the one thing I do want to say is I think probably kept his job safe. If this team probably just needs 2 or 3 more wins, and he'll be good. It's good to go for next season. You'd have to think the team is still playing hard. Other than that second half against the Saints, that's not. But I still do worry about the in-game management. I think it's an issue. Hopefully, they can make me feel better about that over the next few weeks.
Indeed. Right. Well, that's going to be it from us. Sorry about the little bit of rambling at the end.
As part of the charm.
Indeed.
I hope.
So this week, hopefully, this isn't set in stone yet. We should have tomorrow, hopefully, a Titan report with a maybe a bit miffed Arnie after losing to the Steelers.
He's surprisingly over that game.
He never has hope going into a Steelers game.
I think we've done a good job keeping him grounded.
Yeah. So maybe a Titans report, and the podcast should be tomorrow as well.
Tomorrow or Wednesday, one of the two.
Yeah. Okay, so if you just follow us on the Twitters, I always post up when we're going live on there, so you can just jump on or subscribe to the channel. You'll get a notification the minute we go live. So that's it from me.
Yeah, that's it. Pleasure as always, guys. Have a good one. Go Bucs.